Stapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Avatar-varisthaya Ramakrishna te Nama Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to that Divine Spirit to remove all ignorance from us by lighting the lamp of knowledge. Let us pray to Him to distinguish what is real, what is unchanging, what is unreal, what is constantly changing. Let us pray to that Divine Spirit to sharpen our intellect, to give us inspiration to live practical life, to realize the truth in this very life. With these prayers, I start the discourse of today. The topic, Sri Ramakrishna, our living commentary on the Upanishadic teachings. Very recently, we celebrated the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna, remembering his spiritual teachings. So, we have got a life presented before us, showing that spirituality is not impractical. Sri Ramakrishna showed through his life that one could realize the truth before one leaves this body. What the Upanishads call it as Jivan Mukti. You must experience the truth while you are alive, while you are very much in your body and mind, fully active. It is not simply imagination. So, Sri Ramakrishna has demonstrated through his own life of intense discipline and practice. So what is to be noted here is that without any compromising, we should be able to live a life of discipline. Because we are living in this world facing all types of odds, all sorts of miseries, sufferings. So we have to fight out all these things. That means we are fighting out the evil force which is taking us away from the divine, which is making us more and more involved in the ever-changing world. When the world drags us, we lose our way. So Sri Ramakrishna has shown through his life that we have come to this world not to lose our life, but to gain. We have come here to achieve something very essential. We have come here to have illumination. We have come here to dispel the darkness of ignorance. So Sri Ramakrishna is showing through his life that the truths given out by the Upanishads are very much alive. They are not dead. It's not that, oh, we can't practice them, so what is the use of those Upanishadic ideas? No. Truths are all there. What needs to be done is practice. So Vedanta philosophy, Vedanta means the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge. The essence of the Vedas is called Vedanta. The essence of the Vedas is given in the last section of the Vedas. First it deals with all kinds of rituals and duties and responsibilities, various things. But the Vedas gradually take you towards God, and finally it tells you to discard everything and hold on to the divine. So Vedanta philosophy forms the basis of Hinduism. It also contains the core principles of all other religions. Through his own unparalleled spiritual struggles and experiences, Sri Ramakrishna became a living representation of the spirit of the Upanishads. He did not study the Upanishads as such in the traditional way. He had little to do with the book learning and panditry. Just as in ancient times the sages had realized these spiritual principles and truths, Sri Ramakrishna experienced them within himself through following rigorous self-discipline, through perfect concentration, maintaining purity. So, all these things helped him to have the first-hand knowledge of the Upanishads. The Vedantic scholars of that time, they were all marveled at his spiritual insights and wisdom when they listened to his enlightening talks. Whenever they would come and sit before him for a few minutes, they would enjoy remarkable peace and happiness in his presence. That is a test of practical life. Just the presence itself influences the people thoroughly. Even their look purifies our hearts. If we ourselves had to try, we had to struggle very hard, probably many lives we have to spend. Because so much of impurities are locked up in our mind, it's not easy to unload them. But one look of the holy man burns away all these impurities at ease. His own youthful disciples, some of them had Upanishadic knowledge, they had studied Upanishads and commentaries. They were marveled at the Vedantic wisdom of their great master. Swami Vivekananda, for example, the foremost among the disciples, he was considered most learned of them all in the philosophies of East and West. He had studied them thoroughly well. He found in Sri Ramakrishna the soul of the Upanishads, the key to the understanding of the harmony underlying the apparently diverging teachings thereof. Swamiji said, through the grace of God, I had the great good fortune to sit at the feet of one whose whole life was such an interpretation, whose life 1,000-fold more than whose teaching was a living commentary on the texts of the Upanishads, was in fact the spirit of the Upanishads living in a human form. These are the exact words of Vivekananda we find in Complete Works Volume 3. Another disciple, Swami Chidananda, he also had studied Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads and studied the commentaries of Shankaracharya. He followed a little bit of orthodox discipline. He was a staunch follower of non-dualism. He used to come to Sri Ramakrishna to talk to him, to be in his holy association. Sometimes he would think that even these visits were a distraction. Sri Ramakrishna came to know of this. Whenever a person would come and stand before me, he would immediately make out the inside of him completely. So, at the next opportunity, Sri Ramakrishna, as soon as he saw him, he revealed to him the true spirit of Vedanta. He told Swami Chidananda, who was having that kind of thought in his mind, Sri Ramakrishna told him, well, I hear you are now given much to the discussion of the Vedanta. That's very good. But does it not amount to this? Brahman is real, the world unreal, or is it anything else? What is the essence of all these discussions which you are having? Volumes of books, scriptures are there. I think this is the only essence. God is real, Brahman is real, everything else is unreal. These words, spoken directly from the Master's personal experience of Vedantic truths, changed Swami Chidananda's course of life. Because Sri Ramakrishna's life is there in front of him, so inspiring. And whenever he saw Sri Ramakrishna, he would see him always in a perfect posture, completely peaceful and cheerful. Swami Chidananda was all along taught that to understand Vedanta, what to speak of winning liberation, one had to study difficult Vedantic texts and other related subjects. Now, coming in contact with Sri Ramakrishna, he came to know that the essential thing about Vedanta was to get a firm conviction about the reality of Brahman and the impermanence of the phenomenal world, and to make that conviction a fact of experience through meditation. Sri Ramakrishna thus influenced directly through his life many of these spiritual seekers. In Upanishads, there is the mention of Dhira. Sri Ramakrishna perfectly manifests this quality of dhirata. The Upanishads specify the features of a dhira, means who is called dhira? The most wise, most able, one of discrimination, of one-pointed resolution and ultimate wisdom. Such a person is said to be a dhira. He is a spiritual pioneer who set out in search of the treasure of the immortal Atman and successfully completes the search. From first to last, the dhira is characterized especially by the quality of spiritual discrimination. At the beginning, he discriminates between the pleasant, the ephemeral, and the good, the eternal. And he chooses only the good, the eternal. In the Upanishad, there is a fine verse which tells this point. Shreyascha preyascha manushyametah tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha shreyo hi dhiro vipreyaso vrinite preyo mando yogakshemad vrinite. It's a famous statement of the Upanishads. Here, the feature of the dhira is explained. Seeing the impermanence and death all around, he seeks the permanent and the immortal. This is sought within his own self, by the control of the senses, by purification and concentration of mind. Everything is inside us. We have to work it out. During this inward search, his power of discrimination becomes even sharper, so that by its strength he is able to separate the spirit, the smokeless light, from its coverings of ego, intelligence, thoughts and body, as the central stalk from a blade of grass. In the Kathopanishad there is a statement, Angushthamatraha purusho antaratma sada jananam hridaye sannivishtaha tam swacharirat pravarhen munjadiveshikam dhairyena tam vidyat shukramamritam tam vidyat shukramamritamiti. So this is the Sanskrit version of what I told before. So when a person is able to identify himself with the Atman, the spirit, he becomes freed from ignorance, bondage and death. These things no more bother him. Such dhiras, persons of discrimination, ever devoted to the self, see everywhere the omnipresent Brahman, and in the end enter into it, which is all this. So like this we find Upanishads telling out these facts about the divine spirit. When we carefully study Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual search from the beginning to its fulfillment, we see the full manifestation of the qualities of the dhira in him. There is no one particular single word that could substitute the word dhira, a Sanskrit word. Sri Ramakrishna's discriminative mind very carefully determined that God alone is the permanent substance and the world with its pleasures and possessions is impermanent. So, he firmly resolved to seek only God. I have come in this human body. Let me first achieve the purpose for which I have taken this body, instead of wasting the time on so many other things. So he made a firm resolve and not to rest till he had realization of the divine spirit in full. He had a brilliant intellect. He perceived at an early age the hollowness of a formal education. He turned away from it. He thought within himself, what is this education? What does it give? It It helps in earning money. The purpose of education is to get job. For that only we need to be educated. So it's always connected with job-oriented education. I don't want that type of education. He called it a mere bread-winning education. His elder brother, Ram Kumar, insisted that Sri Ramakrishna should give serious attention to his curricular studies. Then Sri Ramakrishna replied, I don't want to learn the art of the bundling rice and plantain. What I do want is to achieve that which produces right knowledge and enables man to attain the aim of his life. Again, the Upanishad mentions regarding this education. What is true education? Tatra para rigvedo yajurvedaha samavedo atharvavedaha shiksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti athapara yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. That is, study of the Vedas, phonetics, the code of rituals, grammar, etymology, metrics, astronomy, all these things, many other things, they all come under one classification called apara vidya. That is, all these are classified as inferior knowledge. There is another knowledge which is called para vidya, the superior knowledge by which the imperishable is attained. If you want to achieve imperishable Paramatman, if you want to experience that in your life, you must acquire para vidya. You must aspire for superior knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna's discriminative mind and yearning for moksha, that is liberation, were guiding him towards that paravidya of the Upanishads. But what we see, we generally get lost in the aparavidya. Whole life is gone in just trying to acquire this inferior knowledge. Where is the time to acquire the superior knowledge? No time is left. Sri Ramakrishna now stepped up his rigorous spiritual disciplines. His shining sword of discrimination was ever ready. He cut off one by one from his mind all attachments to passion and possessions, which were obstacles in the spiritual path. He renounced money and the joys of the flesh altogether. These are the two main obstructions in our way to the truth. When Sri Ramakrishna saw that without overcoming the pride of caste and egoism, he could not have the divine vision, he removed the sacred thread, the emblem of his Brahmanhood. Then he quietly started cleaning the latrine of his scavenger's family. Finally, such austere practices gave him most wonderful results. When he sat for meditation, very easily he could detach his consciousness from sense impressions and other distractions. The Vedanta texts prescribe mumukshutva for the spiritual seeker to realize the Atman. Mumukshata means yearning, desire to get liberation. Sri Ramakrishna had tremendous yearning to experience the divine spirit, to realize his immortal nature. Finally, he had the first vision of the Divine Mother, the goal of all these spiritual practices, in her impersonal aspect. He perceived and got merged into an all-pervading ocean of light and consciousness. In later days, when disciples gathered around him and sought spiritual guidance, Sri Ramakrishna asked them to cultivate discrimination. Vichara. He said, you must practice discrimination. You must keep on thinking and thinking. Lust and wealth, they are impermanent. God is the only eternal substance. What does a man get with money? Food, clothes, and a dwelling place, nothing more. You can't realize the divine with its help. Therefore, money can never be the goal of life. Consider what is there in money or in a beautiful body. Discriminate, and you will find that even the body of a beautiful person, it consists of bones, flesh, fat, and other disagreeable things. Why should a person give up God and direct his attention to such things? Why should a man forget God for their sake? Sri Ramakrishna yearned and struggled and attained the vision of the Divine Mother without the help or guidance of any guru whatsoever. Even when he became a regular priest at the Kali temple, he was still, as it were, guided completely from within. In this respect, his life closely resembles the spiritual quest and fulfillment of Satyakama, a Upanishadic sage. Of course, finally afterwards, teachers came to Sri Ramakrishna. Many teachers came. But what he had realized earlier, the same thing was initiated to him by these teachers. So he also had that experience, getting guidance from his own mind. So there is a parallel in the Upanishad also. We find the story of Satyakama. It's a very interesting story in Chandogya Upanishad. When he grew up, when he became young, the thought became very prominent in him. He wanted to acquire Paravidya, that is, superior knowledge. He didn't aspire for this secular knowledge anymore. He wanted that knowledge by which he could achieve the imperishable Paramatma. So he has to approach a guru. Somebody has to guide him. So before taking that step, he went to his mother and asked about his lineage. Because whenever he would meet a guru, he would ask him, who are your parents, who is your father, mother, etc. All the details are to be given. So he wanted to know these details, so he asked the mother about it. The mother also was well aware that the first thing that any guru would ask her child would be his parentage. So, when the son asked this question, she said, "My dear child, to tell you the truth, I know not your lineage." While I was young, I was wandering as a housemaid, serving here and there. I begot you. How then can I know? But I am certain of one thing, and that is, your name is Satyakama, and my name is Jabala. The mother is telling the son. Therefore, go and tell your guru that you are Satyakama Jabala. That's all. So the boy does not know the name of the father. Anyway, he took leave of the mother in search of the guru. He went. Of course, those days, the competent teachers were available in the hermitages. He approached them. The name of the guru was Gautam. So, as soon as he saw him, he offered his reverential salutations and expressed his intention to learn at his feet. As expected, the Guru asked him about his lineage. The boy told the Guru what his mother had told him. Just he told whatever she had said. Finally, the boy said, "Here I am, known as Satyakama Jabala. That's all that I know." Satyakama faced the imminent risk of his being rejected by the Guru. But on the contrary, the Guru was greatly pleased at the truthfulness of the boy. He did not hide the truth. So the Guru said, "No one not born of a Brahmin would dare tell such an unpleasant truth." In those days, the Brahmins were very austere and truthful, rigorous in their spiritual practices. So because this boy had inherited those qualities, he is telling the truth. So he readily agreed to take him as a brahmachari. Since the boy did not depart from the truth, but cling fast to it, happen what may. So he became the disciple now. Now the Guru has to teach him. It's a very hard taskmaster. If you have to learn, you have to be ready for that. One day the Guru called the boy and put him in charge of 400 lean, weak and poorly fed cows. He told the young disciple, "Take all these cows, take them all to the forest, and don't return till they had become a herd of 1,000. Till then you should be in the forest." The ways of the Guru's teaching the disciples were mysterious. The Guru only knew how it would benefit the student. So Satyakama, without questioning, went to the forest with the cows and with a determination to carry out the Guru's orders. He lived in the forest, looking after the cows and bulls. At the same time, his heart was all along yearning after the truth. He wanted to realize the truth, experience the truth, for which he had come to the Guru. So morning to night, he would gaze at the four quarters of the globe, in the midst of the peace of the forest meadows. He felt that all this must be part of a great reality. He directly communicated himself with the nature. So, the story goes, even those dumb animals began to speak to him. The friendly leader of the herd, an aged bull, whispered to him, "Yes, all these four corners of the earth are one aspect of Brahman." He was then on subsequent days taught by the fire, a swan and a diver bird about the other aspects of Brahman. He heard of Brahman in the songs of the birds, felt the great presence in the cycle of seasons, and in the birth, the growth and decay of life around him. His mind slowly realized Brahman in touch, hearing, speech, sight and taste, in the beating of the heart, in the waking and in dreams. Because he was so pure at heart, there was no distraction in his mind. His concentration was thorough. So the truth was revealing to him in so many ways. As soon as the strength of the herd reached 1,000, Satyakama returned to the ashram with them. The Guru saw him. He was so happy to see his beautiful disciple after that long span of time. He looked up and he had a pleasant surprise when he gazed at the brilliant face of the young Satyakama. He asked his disciple, "Dear young man, you shine like one who knows Brahman. Who has taught you?" Only the knower of Brahman can recognize the another. Satyakama replied that by his grace he could have that knowledge through communion with nature. The young disciple said with great humility, "Sir, it is you from whom I expect to learn yet fully of the much coveted knowledge. I have heard from persons like you that only knowledge which is learned from a teacher leads to the highest good." The Guru knew that the disciple was ripe and ready for receiving spiritual knowledge. Finally, the Guru taught him the same knowledge which he had experienced earlier. Though Satyakama doubtless thought he was taught the knowledge of Brahman by a bull, fire, etc., and not by any man, yet the real fact seems to be elsewhere. According to deeper psychological and spiritual laws, it was Satyakama's own pure mind which had become his teacher when he was in the forest. Great spiritual teachers point out that the higher mind in pure aspirants becomes their teacher. Now we can see such a phenomenon happening in Sri Ramakrishna's life also. His mind was firmly set on seeing God, and he was pure as purity itself. Once he revealed his spiritual marvel to his devotees. He said, Sri Ramakrishna telling the devotees, the figure of a young sannyasin, looking like me, used to come out again and again from within me and instruct me on all matters. When he emerged, sometimes I had a little consciousness, and at other times lost it altogether and lay inert, only seeing and hearing his actions and words. When afterwards he entered this gross body, I regained full consciousness. Then the Brahmani, Totapuri and others came and taught me afterwards what I had heard from him previously. They taught me what I had already known. Nothing new they taught. It seems from this that they come as gurus in my life in order that the authority by my honoring their injunctions. Another important aspect, what we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life, confirming the importance of renunciation expounded by the Upanishads. Renunciation is one of the most basic teachings of the Upanishads. If you have to have the vision of God right now, be prepared to give your whole mind to God. Then you will have it. Giving whole mind to God means taking the mind away from the world. In its perfect form, it is represented by the monastic ideal in them. Since it is not possible to attain the highest knowledge without perfect renunciation, without renouncing all desires and enjoyments here and hereafter, therefore the spirit of renunciation is so much emphasized. Not by work, nor by progeny, nor by wealth, says Kaivalya Upanishad, but by renunciation alone, people get immortality. Says Yajnavalkya, a great Upanishadic sage. The knowers of Brahman of olden times did not wish for offspring. What shall we do with offspring? We who have attained this self, this world, they gave up their desires for children, for wealth and for the worlds. They led the life of religious mendicants. That which is a desire for sons is a desire for wealth, and that which is the desire for wealth is a desire for worlds, for both these indeed are but desires. Finally, they are all classified as desires. Therefore, he who knows Brahman as such becomes self-controlled, calm, withdrawn into himself, patient and collected. He sees this self in his own self. He sees all as his self, says the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Sri Ramakrishna represents in his life, in this age, the highest ideal of renunciation upheld by the Upanishads. In him, the desire for wealth and social security, name and glory was rooted out. By looking upon all women as the images of the Divine Mother, And by directing all the love in his human heart towards God as mother, Sri Ramakrishna completely conquered the sex instinct. Thus he had become a perfect sannyasin in spirit. Still, when his Vedantic teacher Totapuri came to Dakshineshwar and offered to initiate him into sannyasa in the traditional way, he readily agreed. After the performance of the Viraja Homa, he received the vows of complete renunciation with the ochre robe, and thus came to uphold the institution of monasticism as well as its spirit. Renunciation, says Vivekananda, is the very soul of the Upanishads. Sri Ramakrishna was a reincarnation of that soul. These are the words of Vivekananda. Having been established in the knowledge of the all-pervading Brahman, he maintained a relationship with his wife, which was entirely spiritual. He saw in her, as in all, the blissful Brahman alone. Thus came to be realized in his life the truth contained in the following verse of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, where it says, Tvam stri tvam pumanasi tvam kumara utava kumari tvam jirno dandena vanchasi tvam jato bhavasi vishvato mukaha. These are all famous verses of the Upanishads. Its meaning is, thou art woman, thou art man, thou art youth and maiden too. Thou as an old man totterest along on a staff. It is thou alone who, when born, assumest diverse forms. Swami Vivekananda, in the course of a dialogue with one of his disciples, said how Sri Ramakrishna used especially to inculcate the spirit of uncompromising renunciation and dispassion in his young disciples who were to become monks. He would immediately mark them. Such people are to be selected for becoming monks. He would rise from his seat and look about to see if any householder disciple was coming that way or not. If he had found them none, then Sri Ramakrishna in glowing words would depict the glory of renunciation and austerity. As a result of the rousing power of that fiery dispassion, Swami Vivekananda said, we have renounced the world and become averse to worldliness. It is by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna we could become monks. Interpreting the deep significance for humanity of Sri Ramakrishna's burning spirit of renunciation, Swami Vivekananda said, Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of renunciation. He was a triumphant example, living realization of the complete conquest of lust and desire for money. He was beyond all ideas of either here or hereafter. He was not aspiring for anything, and such renunciation is necessary in these days when people have begun to think that they cannot live a month without what they call necessities, and which they are increasing out of all proportion. It is necessary in a time like this that a man should arise to demonstrate to the skeptics of the world that there yet breathes a man who doesn't care a straw for all the gold or all the fame that is in the universe. Yet there are such men. Swami Vivekananda said this in his complete works. Another important aspect we find in Sri Ramakrishna confirming the Upanishadic teaching is truthfulness. Truthfulness, the means to the highest. Taittiriya Upanishad gives a commandment to all spiritual speakers. Speak the truth, do not swerve from the truth. Prashna Upanishad says, he who speaks untruth withers to the very root. Because truth is the basis of the individual's character. Truthfulness is the sense of giving utterance to what is actually perceived without hypocrisy or intent to injure others. It's a basic virtue. But truthfulness has a higher value and a deeper significance when it becomes one of the most powerful means of realizing the divine truth. The Kena Upanishad declares that truth is the abode of the Upanishads. Here, truth, as Shankaracharya explains, means freedom from deceit and crookedness in speech, mind and action. For the wisdom taught in the Upanishads abides in those who are free from deceit and who are holy, and not in those who are devilish in nature and deceitful. The importance of truthfulness for realizing the highest reality is declared in another Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad. Satyameva jayate enanratam satyena pantha vitato devayanaha yenakramanti rashiyo hi aptakama yatta tat satyasya paramam nidhanam. The meaning is, truth alone prevails, not falsehood. By truth the path is laid out, the way of the gods, on which the seers, whose every desire is satisfied, proceed to the highest abode of the truth. From his early boyhood, we find Sri Ramakrishna showed a remarkable devotion to truth. Partly, he seems to have inherited this quality from his father, who was ardently devoted to truth and refused to deviate from it even under most trying circumstances. Sri Ramakrishna's sharp power of discernment revealed to him even much earlier that if he was to realize God, the embodiment of absolute truth, he could not deviate even by a hair's breadth from relative truth. Naturally, then, he brought about a perfect conformity between his thoughts, words and actions. Being guileless and straightforward, he remained an utter stranger to crookedness and deceit. Truthfulness became so natural in his life that even unconsciously he could not commit a wrong. You see, after his vision of the Divine Mother, Sri Ramakrishna prayed to her, taking a flower in his hands. O Mother, here is thy knowledge, and here is thy ignorance. Take them both. Give me only pure love. Here is thy holiness, and here is thy unholiness. Take them both. Mother, give me only pure love. Here is thy good, here is thy evil. Take them both, give me pure love. Here is thy righteousness, and here is thy unrighteousness. Take them both, Mother, give me pure love. By praying this, Sri Ramakrishna tells further, I mentioned all these, but I could not say, Mother, here is thy truth, here is thy falsehood, take them both. I did not say that. I gave up everything at her feet, but could not bring myself to give up truth. So, we could see in Sri Ramakrishna's life how all these messages of the Upanishads clearly demonstrated in his life. So, living embodiment of the Upanishads. So he is showing the way to all the people how to experience that in this very life. He advised his devotees and disciples, both householders and would-be monks, to stick to truth. For truthfulness constitutes the spiritual discipline of the Kali Yuga. Truthfulness is the discipline of the Kali Yuga. If a man clings tenaciously to truth, he assured one will ultimately realize God. Well, another thing which the Upanishads always emphasize is that we should aspire for liberation while we are in this very life. We don't know what will happen to us after we leave the body. Who knows? Who will answer that question? So we have to have that zealousness to experience that divine truth in this very life. I must experience the meaning of liberation in this very life, not afterwards. So, there are so many methods to acquire this experience. One is the famous method of Vedanta, neti neti, not this, not this. That means telling not this, you must reject whatever that is not true. That's the idea. Then finally you have to arrive at the truth by constantly meditating on the spiritual idea. Then you will realize, when once you are completely going beyond even ego, when you negate even ego, then you will realize Tattvamasi, that thou art. The Atman is identical with Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna, under the guidance of his Vedantic teacher Totapuri, realized this knowledge of the identity of Atman with Brahman by merging his ego completely in the Absolute. That's why it's called as Nirvikalp Samadhi, where the whole mind is completely dissolved in the Divine Spirit. So the goal of Jivan Mukti, liberation in life, placed before humanity by the Upanishadic sages, was once again demonstrated by Sri Ramakrishna to be practical. It is not that impractical idea has been given in the Upanishads. No. Sri Ramakrishna showed through his life it is possible to have that goal achieved. Finally, Sri Ramakrishna came as a fulfillment of the ancient sages. Renounce, conquer the lower self, attain the knowledge of the true self. the Atman. This is the essential message of the Upanishadic sages. So renunciation and spirituality, they became vibrant realities in Sri Ramakrishna's life, proving these modern times the validity of the truths taught in the Upanishads. Thus we find Sri Ramakrishna as a living commentary on the Upanishadic teachings. Thank you all. The incarnation, but he lived a life of discipline to show how truthfulness is to be adhered to. As far as he is concerned, the truthfulness is nothing but Divine Mother. In the final analysis, the truthfulness, if you hold on to the truth, then you will realize the ultimate reality. If you hold on to this world which is not true, that means you are lost, you are not reaching the goal. So you have to follow a particular method to achieve the goal. So the Divine Spirit is the very embodiment of truthfulness. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So, Satyam is the truthfulness, that is the true knowledge. So if you are aspiring for true knowledge, you must reject all that is opposite to it. You must not give any room to such things. That's the idea. And he is telling, if you hold on to truth, even at the most difficult circumstances, because of your adhering to the truth, that makes you possible to have the vision of the highest God. For example, Sri Ramakrishna's father, he was practicing truthfulness, which I said partly inherited the tendency from his father. The landlord came and he just asked him to give a false witness in the court, and he would give him a lot of money to him. And he said, no, why are you asking me that? Me to come to the court to give a false witness? I can never do that. My whole constitution rebels. Never put that request again. And that landlord became very angry. He was a moneyed man, he had a lot of money. And he filed a false suit against Sri Ramakrishna's father and took away Sri Ramakrishna's father's property which belonged to him by bribing the court judge, etc., whatever it is. Without murmuring, he left everything and went. Like a refugee, he went out without anything. He just repeated Ram's name. Oh Rama, is this your Leela? That I should go like this? Well, it is left to you. Then some friend offered him a piece of land, and then he cultivated, and then. So suppose he was not holding on to that principle of truthfulness. Suppose he had gone and gave witness, false witness. He would have become richest man. The landlord told him, generations you can live without any problem. I will provide you with so much wealth. No, he didn't want. That's why Sri Ramakrishna could be born in his family. And that's why he had the vision of Lord Vishnu. And Kshudiram, Sri Ramakrishna's father, when he had been to Gaya, the abode of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu temple is there. And there he had a vision. Lord Vishnu appearing him and telling him, I am coming to your home. I will be your son. Like it is telling. So he has chosen him because that shows the importance of truthfulness. You can forego anything but not truthfulness. That's what there is the significance of that statement which Sri Ramakrishna made. Thank you all.